for me, it was like learning the story all over. When people ask me why I wrote my new book, The Biography of St. Clare, my answer is that in the first place, I was inspired by my own colleagues at St. Bonaventure University who would happily make a pilgrimage to Assisi, and they would come back, and when I would sit to say, tell me about your experience, almost to a person, they would say, I never knew anything about St. Clare, and now I learned about her. And I'd be sitting there and thinking, yes, but you didn't learn a lot, I'm sure, because the pilgrimages are short and intense. And then they would say, where can I get a good book? And at that point, I could offer several books, but I also knew that those books might not fit what they were looking for. They were either too laden with medieval historical detail, perhaps too much of a theology exploration. Those are important, but an ordinary reader is simply wanting to know, who was she, what did she do? So I began to speak to some colleagues and say, we need a modern biography of Clare, her story, birth, death, and what happened in between. And people would say, good idea, that's a good idea. Then COVID struck. And when COVID struck, I had a calendar that suddenly was blank for 5 months, whereas it had been filled with some lectures, some in-person meetings. And I looked in the mirror and I said, Margaret Carney, you want a book on Clare? It is yours to do. And so I set out to do it. I contacted Franciscan media, and happily they were happy that I was willing to take this on. And I will say, for me, it was like learning the story all over, because I needed to look at the incredible amount of work that has been done by numerous men and women over the years since I did my first research, which was back in the 1980s, 1990s. And so it put me in touch with scholarship that is relatively new and not too well known, and allowed me to be sure that I was doing justice to telling her story to the best of our capacity.